Right, so now let's talk about some of the questions and myths around creativity. Now, I have been into a monologue for a fairly long time. It is very important that we take on some very critical topics on creativity and try to burst them. So for that Q&A, I have with me Mrityunjay. Mrityunjay is a colleague from IIM Bangalore, and he will be representing all of you in terms of asking some very sharp questions. Obviously, if there are some questions that Mrityunjay could not address, I would encourage you to write down your questions at the bottom of this particular video, and I'll be very happy to take on the questions from all of you. So, Mrityunjay.
Thank you so much, Professor. So I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
I will be asking you the question one by one.
Yeah.
So the first question I would like to ask, are you born creative?
Yeah.
So I wanted to know if people born with the creative, or how do you say that?
Yeah. Now, the thing is that this is a good question, by the way, because there is a lot of myth around creativity. Are people born creative or are people made creative? In any situation, what we need to bear in mind is that creativity is nothing more and nothing less than a skill. So, let me ask you this question. Can you swim?
No.
You can't swim, right? Yes. Now, if I ask this question to the audience, I'm sure some of them can say that yes, they can swim. And the reason they can swim is perhaps because they learned swimming, they practiced it, maybe they had a coach, they had access to a swimming pool, somebody in the family was swimming, etc., etc. Which means that there is a reason why somebody could swim.
Yes.
Which means that are we born with the ability to swim? Answer is yes. But few people choose to hone that ability and they become a swimmer. A lot of others don't choose to do that. Same applies to creativity. Creativity is something that we are born with. Most people don't exercise creativity, and as a result, they are not as creative as they should be. So I think we are all born with that ability, but we don't use the ability. And I would be a firm believer that creativity is nothing more and nothing less than the skill. And along the course, we'll delve deeper into that, how this skill can be sharpened. Because the moment I reduce creativity to a skill, it becomes much more amicable, right?
Yes.
Isn't it? Like singing is a skill. And then you sort of get encouraged that, yes, even I can develop that skill. So that's where I'll rest the case.
Okay. So great. So the next question is creativity genetic?
Now, see, as far as genetic traits are concerned, it's a very interesting question, and there is a lot of research which has happened that if a father is creative, does he pass creative genes to the child? Okay. If a mother is creative, does she pass creative gene to the child? Now, as far as intelligence is concerned, it has been comprehensively proven that yes, intelligence goes up with every generation. As a matter of fact, a son is more intelligent than a father because the IQ has gone up, and this effect is called as a Flynn effect. Okay, this effect called Flynn effect, okay, where the IQ goes up in every generation by as much as 10 points. But as far as creativity is concerned, creativity doesn't go up, creativity goes down. So between a father and a child is less creative than the father, and the reason why the child is less creative than the father, even though more intelligent than the father, is because the child is living in a less cognitively complex environment. Okay, now you and me are sitting right now having a discussion. We don't have to be really afraid that what if a snake comes between our legs, or what if a tiger attacks from behind. But our ancestors had to be really worried about these things. So which means they had to really process a lot of complex information in their head all the time, and that is where they had to be very, very creative. So from the genetic perspective, there is a higher propensity that if a father or a mother is creative, there is a higher propensity that a child would be creative, as much as a propensity that if I am a smoker, okay, if my dad is a smoker, the next offspring may have a propensity to smoke. But as long as the environment doesn't induce the propensity, they will not smoke. Which means that even if I am carrying with me genes of being creative, if the environment doesn't demand creativity, I will not express creativity. You're getting the point?
Yes.
So I will have no way of understanding if I am creative because it's the environment. So between the nature versus nurture debate on creativity, I think nurture always wins.
Okay.
Okay. So even if you are not a son or a daughter of a genius, it doesn't matter. Now let us look at Albert Einstein. Now, Albert Einstein is considered as one of the biggest geniuses of the last century. How about his son?
Yes.
Nobody knows about his son, right? Now, Albert Einstein's son did not go on to become a Nobel laureate himself. In fact, one of his child, Albert Einstein's one of his child, suffered massively from a disease called schizophrenia.
Okay.
Albert Einstein's own son suffered from schizophrenia. So there is no proof, and as we have researched, that there are only very few parent-child pair who have won Nobel Prize. I think 7 of them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just
Yes.
about 7 of them. So I think over the last 120 years or so, only 7 occasions we have had. So I think that more than the genetic composition, the environment, the local environment plays an important role, and that is where we have a hope from this course. I mean, it doesn't matter where you are from. You may be from northeast, you may be from south, you may be from north, west, central part of the country, maybe Andaman Nicobar, I do not know. You may be from
Yes.
anywhere, but if you can create your local environment which encourages creativity, I think we have a massive hope.
Thank you. That is great insight for people who will be watching it, and hope this will be a great motivation for the learners to hone their creative and enhance their mindset for learning and entrepreneurship.
Thank
So
you.
my next question is creative art or science?
Now, let us try to understand what is science and what is art. Okay. Now, when I first started playing guitar,
Yes.
playing guitar can be construed as an art. But when I first started playing guitar, my master, my teacher, Leo Camilio is his name, my teacher broke down playing guitar into smaller pieces. So the first thing you do is you learn how to strum, a strumming pattern,
Yes.
and then you change the chords, and then you play the leads, and then you are shifting. And suddenly when all of these things start happening together, both your hands movement and your singing happens together, you start playing guitar, which means all art is science.
Yes.
You understand? All art is science. If I'm a painter, basically what may seem like an art to a onlooker is nothing but a science in my mind. Okay, I'm having a series of steps which I need to go through, maybe a brush stroke, maybe a sketch and scratch. So science perfected becomes art, and art perfected becomes magic. If you look at a magician, what is a magician trying to do? A magician is deceiving you into thinking that there is magic, but magic is nothing but a very refined form of art. Okay, so science becomes art, art becomes magic. Same applies to creativity. At the very root of it, all creativity is science. Okay, but it is not science as such in the way of causality. You can't establish a very clear causality that this happens and then this happens. Okay, the cause and effect is not very clear, and that is where there is an ambiguity, which means that if I write a book on how to be creative and 2 people read the same book, the outcome of the 2 books will not be the same on these 2 people because there is an inherent characteristic. Okay, so the way to develop more creativity is not to really go the artistic way, it is to go through the scientific way. Okay. And once you have perfected that science, automatically to the onlooker it will start looking like an art, because any art is science. Whether it is swimming, painting, sketching, singing, everything is scientific. If you talk to the greatest singers in the world, they'll break down the singing into the science of singing.
Yes.
Okay, which note, how much you stretch, what frequency, which rhythm, isn't it?
Yeah.
But to the uninitiated eyes, it looks more like an art. So I firmly believe it's science, and that is the reason why it can be taught. If it were art, we can't have this course. Because it is science, that's why we are having this course.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yes. Yes, thank you. So this point of time, I can say everything kind of practicality and scientific way. If you lead to them, then we will get success.
Exactly, exactly.
So my next question will be, can creativity be taught?
Yes, and I was building up to this question that I think the belief should be that even if creativity cannot be taught, creativity can be learned. Right?
Okay.
Even if it can't be taught, it can be learned in the way that by watching this video or by going through this course, I will not be super confident that everybody and anybody that goes through this course will be creative. Not necessary. But you can be creative from any source. It's like sun. See, sun is shining equally on all the plants, but some plants grow, some plants don't grow. It's not the sun's mistake. It is a plant genetic composition. But minus sun, nothing will grow. But in the presence of sun also, not everything will grow. Which means that the teacher is the sun and the student is the plant. It's not so much the teacher whose effort counts, it's the students whose efforts counts. So even if you believe that creativity cannot be taught or cannot be taught by me, doesn't matter. You can still learn creativity, and you don't have to sit in a class to learn creativity. You can learn creativity by observing your mom, your dad, your siblings in nature, butterfly, plants, anything and everything, and that is where you can increase your level of creativity. Yes, so it can be learned if not taught.
Okay, great. So my next question will be, what's the role of passion in creativity?
So let us understand first of all what is passion. And passion is a very used, abused, and overused term. Okay, and often people give you advice that follow your passion. But I think a good definition of passion is this: passion is something that you do not get tired doing. That is
Okay.
passion. For example, my crew here, all of them love the camera, correct?
Yes.
It's late in the day and yet they don't feel tired. All of them are so much in the game because they don't feel tired. That is their passion. My passion is this:
Yes.
talking to you and explaining these concepts on creativity. That's my passion. I don't get tired doing it. I can do this for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. So that is passion.
Yes.
So whenever you realize that, oh, this is something I don't get tired doing, then you hit upon the idea that this is what I'm passionate about. It need not be glamorous. For people, it can be gossiping, can be passion. For somebody, binge watching can be a passion. For somebody, dusting the home can be a passion. For somebody, collecting content can be a passion. Rearranging things can be a passion, henceforth and so on. So now that is a passion. Why passion is required for creativity? It is required because the difference between success and failure ultimately boils down to the fact that what do you do when the going gets tough? When the going gets tough, most people chicken out. When there is an uphill task,
Yes.
most people say, "Musse nahi hoga. I don't think I'm cut out for this. I can't do it." But the guys who are passionate, they are the ones who can still go through it. So thought experiments or was not passionate about physics and mathematics, I don't think we would be talking 100 years from then sitting today. There's Isaac Newton being one of them. He was so passionate about science. He was so passionate that he poked his own eyes once with a sharp needle just to understand how eyes receive light. By the age of 25, Isaac Newton already has discovered the laws of gravitational pull, already discovered the composition of light, and guess what? Invented calculus.
Yes.
By the age of 25, most people are not even clear what do they want to do by the age of 25, right? And that was Isaac Newton for you. And from 25 onwards, he spent rest of his life doing alchemy and chemistry. So I think passion is required in life.
Okay, great explanation for the passion. I understood how it is now, and hope our learners also are very much clear about the passion. So my next question will be, can personality influence creativity?
Yeah, so good question. Now, if I look at only one dimension of personality, which is introvert versus extrovert, okay, many people have the belief that extroverts are more creative than introverts, but that's not necessarily true. It may so happen that the extroverts are more expressive about their ideas, and introverts may find it difficult to express their ideas. But to declare that extroverts are more creative than introverts, I think that's a stretch. So, what we need to understand first of all is the fact that whether you are an extrovert or an introvert, you can be creative at all point of time. That's the first thing that we need to understand. And the second thing is the fact that as an introvert, you need to find mechanisms by which you can express yourself. For example, social media. Some of the
Yes.
people who really lapped up social medias were not the ones who were totally extrovert. They were actually introverts. So I don't want to leave the comfort of my drawing room and still I want to talk to the world. So how do I talk? I talk through the social media. So I think whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, you can be creative. The only difference is you have to find the right channel for expressing your creativity. Okay. For example, writers. Most authors that I have come across are generally very introverts, and they are trying to influence the world not by speaking but by writing. They'll be very comfortable sitting in their own homes and sitting in their dorms and trying to revolutionize everything. Programmers is another breed of people who are typically introverts because they want to influence the world not by leaving the confines of their home. Linus Torvalds, who was the founder of Linux, imagine the entire Linux was written by one man. One man written the entire Linux code. And Android is based on Linux code, by the way. Okay,
Yes.
so he wrote Linux. His name is Linus Torvalds, and he was a die-hard introvert. He wrote the entire Linux program without leaving his home in Nordic country. Without leaving his home, it was snowing outside. He sat in his home near the fireplace and wrote the entire Linux code. He was a hardcore introvert, but he was highly creative. So we have examples of both of them. The only thing is, don't force yourself to be somebody else. You have no reason to be somebody else. Okay. Now, if I look at Picasso,
Yes.
Picasso was one of the greatest artists of the last century was Picasso, because he really challenged the conventional wisdom. Some of the initial art forms that Picasso created were totally ugly, and yet he stood that this is what I believe in and this is what I'm willing to express, and hence people followed, and today we talk about him. So I think all personality types can be creative, except that you should not try to be somebody else. Be natural.
Great. So my next question is kind of repetitive, which I already asked, but I want you to focus on more on it. So does creativity depends on the local environment? Like earlier you talked about environment, but I want to give the importance on local environment or
Yes.
surroundings.
Yes.
So how do you say that? How do you
Absolutely.
explain?
Let's go back to Bill Gates, William Gates. Now, Bill Gates has captured our imagination like nobody else. There is hardly anybody that we have known which has spent the longest time of his life being one of the richest person in the world. I don't think there is anybody in the world as an individual who has made more contribution to our lives than Bill Gates. Nobody. Whether it is about eradicating malaria, or about education, or access to healthcare, or access to computation. Had it not been for Microsoft, I don't think we would have had laptop on every desk and every home in the world. It would have been impossible. And he was a college dropout.
Yes.
Now, what was the local environment at Bill Gates' home? To begin with, Bill Gates' father was a lawyer, and Bill Gates' mother was a computer programmer and a salesman working in IBM or one of those organizations. So right at the very beginning, Bill Gates got a head start. The school in which Bill Gates went was one of the first schools in the whole of US that had a computer. He was from a very, very rich family. He was based out of Seattle, very rich family. And because when your dad is a lawyer, you have an understanding of law. So when he framed the law for the disk operating system DOS to be sold to IBM, he put a small clause in that disclosure, and the clause was that the right of the software will be retained by Microsoft and not IBM. IBM thought, what's the big deal there, because IBM was a big juggernaut at that point of time. But the trick was to retain the right of the software with IBM, with Microsoft, and not give it to IBM. So IBM owns hardware, so which means that even if I'm selling the software to you, I own the software. You just own a copy of the software. That genius for a 17-year-old did not come because he studied law, because his dad was a lawyer. And how did he get to IBM? Because his mother used to work at IBM. How did he get so much of intelligence that he was okay dropping out from a school? Because his house was full of books. Okay,
Yes.
so your local environment definitely makes a huge impact. So for all of you who are listening to this video right now, my recommendation to you is that if you want to be creative, focus on what is happening around you. If your house is full of gadgets, you will pick a gadget. If your house is full of books, you will pick a book. If you're spending your weekends on the mall, you will buy dresses that you don't wear, that you don't want, to impress people who don't care. Whereas if you spend your time on a second-hand bookstores, right, in Bangalore, we have this lovely bookstore called Blossoms at the Church Street, and the bookstores nearby, you will definitely pick up more books, and maybe over a period of time, you will be a different person. So the best way to change your behavior is to change your immediate surrounding, starting with people. Change the people whom you surround yourself with. You have no obligation to be with people who are negative. You have no obligation to be with people who criticize you. There is no obligation. If they feel bad, it's okay if they feel bad. They should feel bad. I mean, why shouldn't they feel bad? If they are making you feel bad and if you don't make them feel bad about it, what's the point? Whom are you trying to please? Change your local surroundings. Stay at a place where there is a positive environment. Talk to people who are positive. Go to places which give you more energy and creativity. Because life is too short, guys. Life is too short to change the world. But if you can just change yourself, I think you're doing a good job. So that's the impact of environment on you.
Thank you. So my next question will be, does adversity improve creativity?
Yes, it does. And a lot of examples, and I'll give you two examples, because if I say adversity improves creativity, then people will say that there is nothing wrong with my life, so how can I be creative?
Correct.
Right? My dad is alive, my mom is alive, I'm a rich family, which means I can't be creative. No, you don't have to be a poor person. Okay, but the thing is, in any situation, whether you are from adversity or you are from excess, in both the situations the choice of creativity is yours. For every person whose parents were lost as a child, there is a creative person and there is a non-creative person. Let us go back to one of the most famous polymaths of all time, Da Vinci.
Yes.
Now, if I go back to Leonardo da Vinci was an illegitimate child. Throughout his life, Da Vinci never knew who his parents were. So, in a slang, he was basically a bastard. Nobody knew his dad was. Okay, that was Da Vinci, and the family that took care of him was Vinci. So that's Da Vinci. Okay, Leonardo da Vinci. He never knew who his parents are, and because at that point of time he had talent but didn't have money. So there was a family in Florence, Italy, that funded him, and the family was called as the Medici family. So they were big philanthropists, if you will, a lot of money, and they gave money to Vinci. They gave money to another gentleman of that era called Michelangelo. So they gave money to Vinci and Michelangelo, and they were resurrecting Christianity. So they were painting the Sistine Chapel and all of these things in Rome, and they commissioned these projects. So Da Vinci was commissioned a project, Michelangelo was commissioned a project. Okay, so they were artists without any money. So and people had money and they funded, and that's what led to the Renaissance period. So a lot of people who were the artists and the scientific types had a very, very tough childhood, like Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton's parents divorced at a very early age, and he was brought up by his grandfather. Again, if I look at Thomas Edison, Thomas Edison is one of the greatest inventors of all times. As a child, Thomas Edison was declared unfit to be in a school. Imagine a 5-year-old child told by the teacher that you can't be in my school. And this guy is home educated by his mother and goes on to file 1,200 patents. He's become the biggest inventor of the last century. He gave us the bulb. That's Thomas Edison, isn't it? He was school educated. And how many people who we know who has been school educated? For example, Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos, they were children who were abandoned. And when Jeff Bezos realized that I was an unwanted child, and when Steve Jobs realized that I was an unwanted child, their entire worldview changed. So this is the line of people who had a very abject childhood. But if you have another line of people who had a very wonderful childhood, like I was telling you about Rabindranath Tagore, Munshi Premchand, Mahatma Gandhi. Now, till Mahatma Gandhi went to South Africa, what was Mahatma Gandhi? Let's understand this for a moment. Mahatma Gandhi was studying law in London in 1880. How many people in India in 2024 can afford to study law from London?
Yes.
In 1880, he had enough money, and enough clout, and enough reach to go to London and study law. And he was very clear, Mahatma Gandhi, not Mahatma Gandhi then, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, was very clear that I want to study law, I want to practice law, I want to go to South Africa. I don't care what is happening in India. I want to go to law and South Africa and make a living there. But one episode changed his entire life. The night he was thrown out of a train, even though he is a first class ticket, he was not allowed in the train because his skin color was brown. That changed everything. Yeah. So what happens is, even if you are from a rich family or poor family, what you need is an occasion to change. And that occasion can happen anytime. Like this occasion can happen right now watching this video for any one of us. So I think if you are lucky,
Yes.
And I strongly believe that some of these things are cosmic. Often parents get terribly worried about their children, that what if I don't give him the best schooling, what if I don't take him to hobby classes and things like that. But whatever is in the fate of this child will happen. You can't bereft him of it, you can't give him it. It will happen. So I think creativity has a lot to do with the local environment, and if you can change the local environment, a lot can change.
Okay. So my next question is, what is the role of appreciation or criticism in creativity?
It's a good question. So as long as appreciation and criticism is genuine, it is required. For example, you asked me an interesting question and I said it's a good question. You feel
Yes.
good about it, doesn't it? You
Yes.
feel sort of encouraged to ask me the next question. And if I don't do it, this whole thing will become very monotonous, correct? So as a person who is wanting to encourage creativity, what is required is appreciation and criticism should be given in a regulated fashion. Criticism is required, okay, but I have to criticize the work and not the person.
Okay.
This is not a good painting versus you are not good. That's a very important distinction, because without criticism, there is no improvement. A critique is required, okay? It's very much required, a critique, because the critique pushes you further into developing, and that is where passion comes into the picture. If I criticize you and you're not passionate about what you're doing, you'll leave it.
Yes.
But if you are passionate and I criticize you, you will improve on it.
Yes.
So I think as a creative type, you should invite criticism. But be careful, you invite criticism from whom? You
Yes.
should invite criticism from people only who know how to do it better than you.
Yes.
Which means that if people criticize you, it should be okay. I mean, you need to have thick skin. Once in a while you should do this, that it's okay. I mean, it's your opinion, man.
True.
Because if you try to do anything which is even remotely creative, be rest assured that you will get criticism. No doubt about that. Every time people went about changing the status quo, challenging the grain, questioning the conventional truth, they were questioned, they were challenged, they were reprimanded. But that is the genius. Let's go back to some of these case studies where people were horribly pushed around, like Oppenheimer. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of atomic bomb, had a very, very tough time when he was building this atomic bomb. The amount of criticism which he received from his own community, from his own fraternity, was humongous. And yet he went on to do something which is unfathomable. So I think the reason creativity is scarce is because people are not okay with being criticized. They take it too personally. But tell me, who is loved universally? Mahatma Gandhi was shot down. Abraham Lincoln was shot down, right?
Yes.
Martin Luther King was shot down.
Yes.
John Kennedy was shot down. And they were loved. And if they were shot down, even though they were totally loved, why should we try to be loved by everybody? It's okay. I mean, why should I think that this interview should become hit or everybody should like the answers I'm giving? It's okay. I mean, you may not like it. And I should be okay with that idea of you may not liking it. So I think criticism is required for creativity. But more importantly, for you to be a lifelong creative type, you need to be able to absorb criticism. Look at MS Dhoni.
Yes.
Whatever he does in a match, he will always be criticized. Always be criticized, because people have opinion, man. You can't stop people from having their opinion. But if he really gets absorbed into and entangled into people's opinion and correcting their opinion, he'll not be able to play. Virat Kohli, ditto is the case. He will always be criticized, whatever he does. But he has to bounce back to the next day. Because when people are pulling you down, the only thing that can push you is passion. If Virat Kohli is passionate about cricket, and the day we knew that he is passionate is this day, that he played cricket on the day when his dad died, Virat Kohli.
Yes.
He came straight from the funeral of his dad and he played a cricket match. That's Virat Kohli for you. I distinctly remember it was a 1999 World Cup when Sachin's dad passed away. And he attended his dad's funeral, and next day he came back and made a century. You can't do that. You can do that only if you're passionate about it. Once you're passionate about it, people's criticism and praise doesn't matter. You become almost like, uh, stoic person. You become stoic.
Yes.
A stoic person is one who is neither very excited nor very depressed by what is happening around you. And that is the state that one needs to reach to be creative. Make sense?
Yes. Great insight. Thank you so much. So my next question is mostly in the current generation they can ask. So does travel, because current generation is mostly everyone is creating things in the social media and they are traveling. So does travel or reading improve creativity?
Yeah, of course. Provided you are doing it in variety. Suppose I'm traveling to a place,
Yes.
and all I'm trying to do is to not come out of my cocoon. If I'm not interacting with the local people, trying to taste the local flora, fauna, and the food, and I'm trying to stay in my hotel and then from hotel to the airport, airport to the hotel, I'm not experiencing the place, you would as well be at your home. What I've seen is that when people go to travel, they only try to capture photographs and not capture the essence of the place. When you go to a place, you taste the local food, you meet the local people, you understand the local dialect, you understand the local challenges. You try to live like them for a day or two. Then it makes sense. And the longer you travel, the more is the reason for you to come out of your comfort zone. Because when you're traveling like a parachute drop at a place, you go for 2-3 days and you come back, you are staying at your hotel, eating the same food that you were eating at home, trying to be as comfortable as you were at home. You're not really exposing yourself to the risk. And if there is no risk, there is no learning. Like if you look at this whole setup of the interview itself, we are taking a risk.
Yes.
We are going against the format.
Yeah.
But this is the way we learn. This is the way we learn that it works or it doesn't work. This is a script for the future possible episodes of this whole thing. It may fail, but if you don't do it, it will certainly fail. Same happens to reading. It depends upon the variety which you are reading. If you're reading the same genre over a period of time, then obviously you are not sort of learning anything new. But if you change the genre that you are learning, then it makes a huge difference. So I believe that you should both read places and people and books and literature with a very high variety. For example, for the longest time, I was not a fiction reader. I always used to think that fiction is a waste of time. How wrong I was. And now I'm increasingly reading fiction. I recently finished The Great Gatsby, which to many of you, I am a retarded person if I'm reading Great Gatsby now. I'm now reading Catch 22. And at the age of 42, I'm appreciating the richness of fiction. Because what fiction does, which non-fiction can never do, is to increase your imagination. When I'm reading fiction, I have to imagine, oh, this is how the plot is, this is how the character is. When the character is defined in the richness and detail. For example, I was reading this book called American Sniper by Chris Kyle. I watched the movie American Sniper by Clint Eastwood, starring Bradley Cooper, and then I read the book American Sniper. But the richness with which American Sniper book is written can never be exhibited in the richness of the movie. Or for example, Zero Dark 30, which is a movie on the killing of Osama bin Laden, and the book called No Easy Day. When you read the book No Easy Day, the richness of the same plot of the shooting down of the USL and the movie is very, very different. So I think I have corrected myself that I think as a voracious reader, I was still very narrow in my reading habits. Now I'm trying to read very, very broad. Anything and everything I'm trying to read. And that is where my imagination is improving. So I think a giveaway for you is variety. Add variety to your life. Never be predictable, because the moment you become predictable, you are dead.
Yes. So yeah, so this advice and this suggestion of reading and variety of traveling with having risk of not knowing what the place offer you. So all this hope the learner will be get benefited with all your advice. So my next question is, are there any gender differences in creativity?
That's a tricky question. Yes, because genetically men and women are created very differently. Okay, now we have the right half of the brain and the left half of the brain. The right half of the brain is predominantly instrumental in what we call as the feeling brain. This is the feeling brain and this is called the thinking brain. Feeling brain, thinking brain. Okay, and connecting the two halves of the brain, thinking and the feeling brain, is a cord which is called as corpus callosum. So think of brain like a walnut. Okay, the two halves of the walnut, and there is a connection between the two halves of the walnut, and that is called corpus callosum. It's like the umbilical cord that connects the newborn to the mother. It's that thick. Now the wiring, the inter sort of a hemispherical wiring defines how much you can use both half of the brain in any activity, in any decision making. And guess what? Women have 2 times thicker corpus callosum than men. So the interconnectivity between two halves of the brain is 2 times thicker in women than in men, which means that women cannot think without feeling and they cannot feel without thinking. Men can think without feeling and they can feel without thinking. Okay?
So they have a genetically advantage.
And I wouldn't say advantage versus disadvantage. So, for example, a man would find it very difficult to balance thinking and feeling, and the CT scans and the MRI scans of human brain show that when men perform any activity, there's a lot of same node connections, whereas when women do any activity, there is a lot of cross node connections. Okay, cross node connections are very many. Now, because the seed of creativity is not this or this, it is this. It's called prefrontal cortex. Okay? Prefrontal cortex is where the creativity is stored. And because women have higher cross node connections, there is a very high possibility that consequently women have higher level of creativity. But it depends on the context. In certain contexts, what we have seen is that women are far outlandish in terms of their ideas as against men. But what advice I would like to offer is that whenever you are doing any creative activity, it's a good thing to have a group which is diverse. Which means if I have an all men group versus an all women group, there is no guarantee that all women group will produce better ideas than all men group. But if I have a third group, which is a mix of men and women, this group will outperform either of the two groups. And that is the takeaway in terms of gender.
Okay. So my next question is, are educated people more creative?
It's a good question. It's a very good question. If I say they are not creative, then you will leave this course.
Of course.
Right? Because what's the point of education then?
Yes.
Now, if I go back to the definition of creativity, creativity means two things: utility and novelty. Okay?
Yes.
With higher level of education, what happens is the utility of your idea may go up, but the novelty of the idea may come down. Which means that if I am educated only in one domain vertically, like law, if I am only into law, I have no understanding of anything beyond law, that type of education is dangerous for creativity. Because my vision is tunnel. I'm only into law, nothing in the world matters to me.
Yes.
So I'll have no novelty because I'm not borrowing anything from any other discipline. But if education is of a broad category, where I'm self-educating myself about law, about medicine, about sports, about science, literature, astronomy, astrology, that's also education.
Yes.
Being a PhD in law is also education, and understanding different domains, that's also education. But in the second type of education, I'm increasing my novelty and utility both. Okay? So what type of education is more important? Okay, so I can't say that more education results into less creativity or less education is more creative. No, it's a type of education. So the advice for the youngsters here is that it's never too late to read more and to read variety. As a matter of fact, there is this brilliant book by David Epstein by the name Range, where he talks about the difference between Roger Federer and Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods is a golf player and Roger Federer is a tennis player. Tiger Woods started playing at the age of 4, golf. And Roger Federer did not know that he wants to play tennis till the age of 12. He was a football player, Roger Federer. Roger Federer is considered the greatest of all time in tennis, and yet he was a football player. Which means that the more deferred you become in your specialization, you need to delay your specialization. Experiment a lot of things and then commit late in life. That is how you'll develop more creativity and resilience in your life. Make sense?
Yes.
So have education, but of a very high variety.
Okay, thank you. So my next question is in the same line. So is there any influence of grades or marks on creativity?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's a very appropriate question. So my first request to all of you is that, guys, don't die for marks. It's not worth it. Okay? I believe an average child is a happy child. Not the A plus child, not the A child, the B child. A B or a B plus child is a happier child than an A or an A plus child, and I'll tell you why. See, throughout my education, especially after class 10th, I have been a topper. In 10th, 11th, 12th, I was a gold medalist in my engineering. All through 4 years of engineering, I was a topper of my college. And I have realized one thing, that I've missed so much of life. Once you become a topper or once you become an A student, you have so much of a pressure of maintaining the A. And when you go to higher classes, what happens? It becomes tougher and tougher. So to maintain that A grade, you have to take time away from other things of your life, social activities, hobbies, reading, literature, sports, friendship, to maintain that A. Whereas if I'm a B student, I have reached to a B level by maintaining and balancing everything in my life. I'm not saying be a C or a D. Being a C or a D is dangerous. But the difference between A and B in terms of job market performance is minuscule. It may so happen that the A person has become so insecure that the moment it inches back from A, he doubles down on the effort and he cuts everything else. He doesn't talk to people, he's tunneled into it, and for what? So I think don't fall for marks. As long as you can keep your head above the water, as long as you are not outrightly flunking, as long as you are sincere, marks don't matter. Because I am a living testimony of the fact that I have done nothing in my life which can justify me cutting down everything else at the cost of studies. I remember in my graduation time, I cut down on sports, I cut down on making friends, I cut down on travel, I cut down on so many things just to ensure that I am a topper. And now when I look back at it, I think I failed. I failed as a student. Okay? And that's something I realized after coming back to IIM Bangalore. In IIM Bangalore, I ensured that I have to have variety. So in this campus, I used to regularly go for pool. I used to always play badminton. We used to play cricket. I used to be in the library reading voraciously and ensuring that I got a decent CGPA, that I'll go through this entire program comfortably, but I didn't repeat my mistake from the graduation days. So as you are in graduation, don't try to be a topper. It's not worth it. Try to be an average student, maintain being average student, plus have a very high variety. No marks if you are going out of a college without being good at sports, without having read, without having made friends, without having exposed yourself to what life is. Okay, that's what college gives you, not so much education. It gives you an experience of what is life. So marks is something which is a very vague indicator. And I'm sitting at a place where this movie Three Idiots was shot. And what was the central message of the movie Three Idiots?
Yes.
Right? Don't chase marks, chase competence, chase excellence. Once you chase excellence, success will come back to you.
Yes.
And I don't think I have to emphasize on that point. So if you have any confusion, go and please watch that movie again.
Yeah. So my next question is, does comparison kills creativity?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Imagine two children born from the same womb of the same mother. Are they identical?
No.
No. Nobody knows what happens to the brother of Albert Einstein. Nobody knows what happens to the brother of Mahatma Gandhi. Nobody knows who is the brother and what is he doing of our current Prime Minister, right? Which means that no two people are similar. Yet our education system, our parenting system forces us into some sort of a grading. He is superior, he is inferior, he is good for nothing, he is average, because we can't think any better. So I think what we need to first of all understand and appreciate is life is variety. Even in the same tree, no two leaves are exactly the same. In this big tree, I take any two leaves and I compare them, they are never exactly the same, even if they belong to the same tree. So how can two people be same? So all comparison is bogus. The only thing that worth, and I'm not being philosophical here, MJ, being very practical here, the only comparison that matters is, am I better today than yesterday? That's it. And if the answer is yes, I'm doing good. But the day I realize that I'm inferior than what I was yesterday, nothing else matters. I may be superior to anybody else, but if I'm inferior to my own yesterday's self, it doesn't matter. So as an entrepreneur and as a faculty, I have stopped comparing myself with my peer community long back, because the comparison is futile. On
Yes.
one dimension, I may be superior to them, but on another dimension, I may be very bad. I may earn more money, but my family life may be ruined. Possible. I may have a bigger fame, but my children may not like me at all. Is that comparison worth it? Now, as a student, since you have only one dimension, which is marks, the comparison is sort of okay. But as you will become adult, you will have other dimensions. Your relationship with your parents, your your ability to take care of your health. Till 20, 30, health doesn't even matter. You can abuse yourself by doing whatever you feel like. But at 40s, health matters, man. You can't be abusing your body. And that's where the comparisons with the external world stops to matter. The only comparison worth it is Pawan Soni today better than Pawan Soni yesterday? And can I be better than tomorrow? If I'm better tomorrow, I have nothing to fear. That's the comparison which is worth it.
So comparison with self.
That's it.
Okay, great. So my next question is, are more intelligent people are more creative?
Yeah, so in this course we discuss in length, but the short answer is that creativity and intelligence are not directly related. So I cannot say for a fact that higher intelligence is higher creativity. However, if a person who is highly intelligent also has low inhibitions, inhibitions means hesitation. In Hindi it is called sankoch, hichkichahat. If I'm thinking too much, should I say that, should I not say that, what will he think, what will she think, how will they perceive me? If I'm thinking too much, my intelligence is meaningless. But if I have a high intelligence plus I have low inhibitions, I'm a very creative person. So what happens is that schools focus on intelligence, parents focus on attitude. And I think in the long run, intelligence gets you into the job. It's your attitude that gets you through the job.
Okay, yes.
It's your attitude that gets through the job. Like you have an attitude of curiosity. You have an attitude which is positive. And this is the kind of attitude that will take you through the way. If my students have an attitude of questioning, of observing, of challenging, that's the kind of attitude. Because the very fact that you have joined the course means that your intelligence level is same. But will you do the exact same in your life? The answer is no. Okay. So I think intelligence is an entry ticket and attitude is the performance. And you will not be known because you played. You will be known because you played well. And that is the attitude part of it, that you should not worry too much about people's opinion. I think as Indians, we worry too much about what people are thinking and saying about us, which I think is absolutely bogus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That opens on my intelligence things, and or when I was thinking the class toppers and how they are more creative during the school days and the college days. When I was studying, I was thinking all kind of things. So that's a very good insight. So my next question is, does meditation impacts
Yes.
creativity?
Yes, it does. Meditation impacts creativity. How? See, I have been practicing meditation, pranayam, yoga, and other forms of meditation for some years now. And I have seen one thing, that what meditation does to you, is that it delinks your present self from the past or the future self. Why do we need to meditate? If you think about that, most of the time human mind is not present where human body is. It may happen that while I'm telling you the answer of this question, you may be thinking about the next question, or you may be thinking about the last answer.
Yes.
Which means your mind is not here at this moment. So our mind is either ruminating about the past or contemplating about the future. Your mind is not where your body is. What meditation does, and all the breathing techniques do, by focusing on maybe your nose or your object or Om or maybe your God or your breath or nothing in particular, your body and your mind is centered. Okay? This improves the capacity of your brain to think more creatively. For example, one of the greatest writers of the current era is a person by the name Yuval Noah Harari,
Yes.
who wrote the book Sapiens.
Yes.
And Yuval Noah Harari has been practicing meditation, Vipassana, that's a brand of meditation, for the last 12 years at least. And he attributes all his success as an author and as a thinker to one and only one thing, which is meditation. Because he says that when I'm meditating, I can distinguish between what is truth versus what is my own imagination. So I think meditation is very, very critical for creativity, and don't think that you have to be crossing a certain age to start meditation. You can start meditation at any age. I've seen children doing meditation, and please don't confuse meditation with religion. Many people think that only certain religions can perform meditation. I don't think that at all. Meditation is a practice, not a religious practice. Okay, you can be from any religion whatsoever, and yet you can meditate. For example, yoga. Yoga is a contribution of India to the rest of the world, but yoga was revived by the Western world. The real benefits of yoga was not realized by Indians. The real benefits of yoga were realized by the Westerns, and most of them were Christians. So there is no way to limit any of these practices to any religious identity. That is very important. So meditate, have any type of meditation, but it really helps you calm down, increase the capacity of your brain to think creatively, and it allows you to really have better control on your senses, which typically we are wasting by
Yes.
looking at reels and all of that crappy business.
Attention.
Yeah, exactly. If you can increase the attention span, then your creativity is meaningful. Otherwise, with very short attention span, you can't create anything useful in life.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I urge you people, all the learners, to do meditation whenever you have time. Try to do this. And thank you for unfolding the benefits and of the meditation to us. So my next question is, does your thinking pattern impact the creativity?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's very critical that you think in terms of discipline. Okay, many people think that discipline and creativity cannot coexist. They think that a pattern way of thinking will kill creativity. No, creativity is a systematic method of breaking the pattern. Some of the most creative people in the world are highly disciplined at it. For example, Christopher Nolan. Again, I'll go back to my favorite director. Christopher Nolan is extremely disciplined. In fact, one of his sayings is that better than breaking the rules is to make new rules. Making new rules is better than breaking old rules. Okay, because that is act of discipline. One of the act of discipline that Nolan talks about is that once you write a script, you stick to the script come what may. That's where you're pushing the boundaries of excellence. So I think being rigid is also useful for creativity, and being flexible is also useful, but you need to be flexible within a rigid boundary. The boundary should be non-negotiable.
Okay.
For example, in this course we have a boundary of number of hours, of the mode of delivery, of the course content, right? And once the boundary is set, which is non-negotiable, you need to be infinitely flexible inside the boundary. The problem happens when people don't define the boundary clearly.
Yes.
Define the boundary clearly and non-negotiably, and then within that have play. And that is how you think like a yin and yang. The yin and yang of creativity is the yin and yang of chaos and discipline. You need chaos to evolve, and you need discipline to perform. So both are required.
Okay, so that leads to my next question about processes. If processes kills the creativity, because lot of the big corporations they develop processes. Like I was thinking about this example, Toyota and other companies they have developed the processes.
Yeah.
So how do you say if it?
It's a good one. I think processes don't always kill creativity. They kill creativity only when processes rob people of their initiative. If I'm an employee and I'm just blindly following the processes, then there is no way that I can be creative because I'm not using my mind. But if I have no processes to follow at all, then it is complete chaos. For example, in IIM Bangalore, if we have to get something done, we need to follow certain processes. And that certain processes make this entire institution stand beyond people. This institution has been standing for over 52 years now, only because of processes, because people keep coming in and going out. But if the processes are too rigid, then people will stop using their own creativity. So I think the yin and yang is a very good symbol of chaos and discipline. So we need processes, but we need to give processes enough room so that individual can change the processes if need be. So these are living processes, evolving processes, but processes nonetheless.
Okay, great. So I come to the last question. So it's on a lighter note because our learners are in their teen and youth age, and also so they kind of going out, having uh, going out to do party and all. So I just wanted to ask, do you think smoking, consumption of coffee and alcohol and other related things impact creativity?
Yeah, it's a good one. So there is a trend that these artists, musicians, painters, rock band players, etc., they get into alcoholism. And often people say that if I'm drinking and if I'm smoking, if I'm taking, uh, intoxicants, my creativity goes up. Well, what happens is it's not your creativity goes up, your inhibitions go down, right? Your inhibitions go down. But the risk is that it may go down so much that you are led useless. Okay. Now, if I drink coffee, coffee is a stimulant and alcohol is a depressant. Okay, so coffee is a stimulant means it will increase your alertness. So when I'm more alert, I'll be better at catching mistakes. But when I'm more depressed, in the sense if I'm consuming alcohol, I'll not be willing to catch mistakes. So in nutshell, any of the effect that we have seen, whether it is of coffee or alcohol or smoking or any other oxidants, in the real long run, all of that is negative. Because you do not know when to stop. You do not know how much of it is useful, when to say goodbye to it, and very quickly you get into addiction. And I always believe that any habit is bad, whether it's a habit of coffee or cigarette or mild alcohol or anything for that matter is a bad habit. So my request and my suggestion to all the youngsters is that this is a great age to keep yourself away from some of these pulls in life. Now think about that for a moment. Bruce Lee died at the age of 32. Swami Vivekanand, he didn't cross 40. Van Gogh, 37. Heath Ledger, 28. You have some of the most amazing people who have walked on the surface of earth, had a very, very short lifespan. But in that short lifespan, they could do remarkable things. And they could do remarkable things because they could channelize their energy. So this is the age which you can waste completely or you can create completely. You can do something wonderful with your life or you can do something awful with your life. It's completely up to you. Because as a teacher, as a friend, as a well-wisher, or as your parents, they can only touch your life to a very finite extent. So I think if you can remain away from these things, it is best for you, because any kind of addiction always starts with an experiment.
Yes.
Let me try how it tastes. But it never stops there. You can quickly slip into worse form of that stuff, and I don't think you should do it because it makes you creative. That's the worst excuse that you can give. It doesn't make you creative, because even if it does, it comes with a lot of other riders and a lot of side effects. So I hope that you found this discussion useful, and I hope you will abstain from some of these abusive substances as you grow in your life. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
about it.
So I have another question which instantly comes to my mind at the end, because we are talking about creativity, innovation, imagination. So how do you difference between creativity, creative, and imagination?
Very good, very good. So let me distinguish between creativity and innovation, because we use these words quite loosely and quite interchangeably. The difference is, creativity is the act of generating ideas. Innovation is the act of implementing ideas. That's the difference.
Okay.
Okay, if I'm generating ideas and doing nothing about it, I'm just being creative. But if I'm generating ideas and also implementing those ideas in the form of a commercial setting, then it is innovation. That's the distinction.
Great. Okay, so we are we have come to the end to the discussion, and I would like to ask you if you have any suggestion to
Yeah.
our learner on the
Yeah,
on
so this
creativity.
is exactly. Now, this is the book which I authored called Design Your Thinking. And many of the questions which I have tried to answer in this particular discussion have also been discussed in length in this book. And this is also a course book that I'll be recommending you. But more importantly, I would like you to get back into the habit of reading books. I think we have lost the habit of reading books. We often read for the sake of marks, which I don't think is a great idea. So, the intent of this entire course is to stimulate your thinking patterns, to make you more creative, and to get you back to the basics that have brought us so far. So, thank you, MJ, for
Thank you,
bringing
Professor.
your.
Thank you, Professor, for giving us such insights and misting the past. And yeah, this is a very good conversation. And I am from the learner side, and taking all these questions from the learner and asking you and getting the doubt cleared. So thank you so much for this
Thank
conversation.
you. Thank you. Good
Thank you.
job. All right, guys. Thank you.